Yeah. Oh, that's true. I have a lot of jokes about Minnesota, but I'm not going to put them. I'm not going to put them on here. So
No
I can
problem.
tell you why. I can tell you why Minnesota is windy. Well, there's a lot of
Why?
wind turbines in because Minnesota blows.
Kind of funny.
Well,
That's good. So anyway, we're in Minnesota yet.
we're leaving Lake Benton. One of the first wind farms I worked on was in Lake Benton, Minnesota, and
Okay.
I'm pulling up to a wind farm. Prairie Rose is another wind farm we've worked on here. So
Well, that's cool. I mean, obviously, that's what we're talking about here right now, right?
yes, sir.
So tell me how your background a little bit. How'd you get into business?
Second generation.
Okay.
Dad started in
And,
1977, and then he brought all his kids into it.
and when he brought his kids into it, what did it look like in 1977, and what does it look like now?
In 1977, we were after the second energy embargo, and my dad was sitting there going, "Well, there's the government's not going to fix this," and so he got in wind turbines back in '77, and then put up some of the largest wind farms in the United States back in '98 and '99,
Oh, great.
and then our company was bought by Enron, so I was one of the Enron um, fallouts.
So the company was bought by Enron, and then what happened? You guys get reversionary rights, or did you start a new company?
Yeah, I started our own company back in 2002,
Okay.
and we've developed a number of wind farms over the years for other companies, and we're finally getting to the point to create our own longevity, our own security. We want to own and operate our own assets, so we're working on portfolios of solar projects and wind projects that we own and operate.
Hmm. Okay, great. So, all right. So let's back up for a second here. So you've been doing this since 2002. Can you explain to me a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about the economic model of the business in 2002 and how it's evolved, where you're at now, and why you're actually seeking some investments?
Yeah, the model in 2002 was a consulting company.
Okay.
We were fresh out of Enron, and with a whole bunch of skill sets. And now with the model that we're doing today is that we're working on being owner operator.
Okay.
So a little bit different model. Um, so as to be as opposed maybe being a coder, you now want to own your own domains, your own server farms. That's what we want. Something that's ongoing, continuous revenue stream.
Got it. Okay. So I'm getting texts in the middle of this thing. Are you getting texts as well too? Okay, we have people that are
Yeah.
starting to watch us. Okay, so let me move these windows open. So I love renewable energy. I like alternative energy. I like green energy. I'm very familiar with some of the windmill farms. I've seen them in Palm Desert and Palm Springs. I've not seen so many of them in the Midwest. So give me the scope of the business, if you can, in terms from a global perspective or a national perspective, and tell me about where you're at, what the scope is, and kind of your business model. Because so that might be
Right.
a loaded question,
Well,
but it'll be good.
our customers who we've been working for, and we still have. I have another company that does consulting for the big wind farms, wind developers, and those are selling wholesale power. What we're trying to do with our business model is doing retail, a little closer to retail, and so we're getting a little bit more of the margin out of the whole energy mix, and that allows for better economics. And our target customer is going in between a municipal, a university, a school, or a hospital, these nonprofit entities, in order to sell them electricity. The other model was selling electricity to the utilities, and the utilities were buying wholesale pricing. So, a little bit of a deviation from the way we've done it before, but and now the projects are smaller and fit into our financing abilities.
Got it. Okay, so give me some cost structures. If you're onboarding me, I'm a school, and
Mm-hmm.
give me the economics, how it works, and let me understand that from that perspective.
Right. School would approach. We're going to offer them a supply contract, and so we're going to be competing against their local utility, and we're typically going to shoot for about a 10 to 20% reduction in what they're currently paying in cost, and we're able to levelize their escalation a lot easier, a lot more predictably. Here in Iowa, where we're looking at 25% rate increases for one of the utilities for their electricity bills, and that's really tough for a lot of businesses to be able to handle such an increase in electric cost. Now, for Oh, um, we're looking at a 2.5, 2% rate increase on our electricity over the life of a contract. So, a 20-year contract, we're going to have a 2% or 2.5% rate increase.
Okay. What's the cost structure actually putting in the system? And what does it cover? How many kilowatts? Do you measure by kilowatts? Do you do it by square footage? How do you determine it?
Our nominal size we try to stay above is 100 kilowatts because a lot of the soft costs, a lot of the legal fees, a lot of the other variables that go into this that aren't easily be able to captured in the financing. The minimum we've done on these PPA contracts is 100 kilowatts. We like the megawatt and better because we can get cheaper money.
Mm-hmm. I lost you there, Rob. You're back.
Yeah,
Okay.
My wife wanted to talk to me, so sorry, honey.
That's good.
I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Okay. So give me the cost structure. So, what's your hard cost, fixed cost for setting up the units itself? Give me kind of a broad scope here, what that looks like.
What we sink into a project or invest into a project is about $50,000 in our money, and we'll get about a 10x return on that money on average or better. That does a lot of the preliminary due diligence. We get to a PPA contract, and once we get to that PPA contract, then we're able to bring on more on the project financing. So that's with the U.S. Bank or Wells Fargo or someone else jumps on is when we have the PPA in place.
So your rate of return on a monthly basis or a yearly basis would be what? You just said 10 times the amount. Over what life of that contract or term do you get the 10%?
10x. Well, for that $50,000, we get a 10x.
By when? No, give me a timing. Is that for how many years?
It could be 6 months for our projects. Could be as much as a year. We have a college that we've been working for 2.5 years. It's an $8 million project we're moving forward right now, and that took 2.5 years from when we were introduced to when we got a contract. We got $48,000 into that over the 2.5 year period. Now they're not all that long. We got some that can take a lot less than that.
Okay, so you put $40,000 or $50,000 in that project, and you said you're going to get $8 million. It's an $8 million project.
Right.
After how long? So what's the term in that deal?
The term of the deal, so the bulk of the money that comes in from a Wells Fargo or our U.S. Bank, and they'll get an 8% rate of return on their money because they're getting a tax equity plus leverage position on the project.
Sure.
And we'll get
I believe there's also some government tax breaks. Do you pass that through to the banks, or is it strictly through your company?
Typically they go to the bank. The tax equity investor will get the financing from the bank.
Mm-hmm.
One of the banks.
But the tax credits themselves, where would they go?
We'll go with Wells Fargo or U.S. Bank.
So it doesn't pass through to you, the company?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't pass through to you, the company, as well?
We do get a little slice of it. There is a chunk of that we get as well.
What does that look like? What are the tax incentives that you have? Is it variable by each state, or is it a federally backed program?
30% right now for
30%.
So $1 million project will have $300,000 in tax incentives. Yep.
Gotcha. So it really would behoove you to try and get equity. It's probably why you're going for equity right now rather than getting loans, because you guys can realize that potential breakthrough the government, right? Am I wrong on that? Or okay, that's what I figured.
Right. And what we are looking for in our company is that we got 4 hospitals that were signed up, letter of, and we're moving those forward to PPA structure. And all right, now I'm in the wind farm. Sorry.
That's okay.
So snuck up on me on this time call. I had it on my phone at 3:00, pull off to the side of the road, and I remember that Danny had moved it back a half an hour, so I apologize.
No problem.
I'm okay. So yeah, we got 4 hospitals we're working on, 1 nursing home, a few schools, but the hospitals are moving quickly. One hospital is a $6.1 million project, and so we need to be investing more on the development into that project.
So let's break down that project, okay? Yeah, $6.1 million project. Define what that means. Tell me about the term of the deal, the service contract you have with them. What kind of dollars have to go in? I presume the same $50,000 you talked about before. And so break that down for me. So when you say it's a $6.1 million project, is that what you think you'll realize over the term, or is that the gross?
That is right. That's the cost of the project. The revenue will be exponentially more. I don't have that off the top of my head right now.
Okay.
But so
that number's key. That number's key for our analysis, I would think, right?
Okay. Yep. And I can supply all that after the call here.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we'll invest the $50,000 into the project, and in order to develop, there's legal fees that go into that. Some of the preliminary permitting, some engineering. So there's a number of different things that go into.
And how much money you put in hard costs in the actual windmills themselves? What do they actually cost?
The cost is very nominal for what. Well,
so that's one behind you. I like it. Can we just put that in your car and bring it to my office? We can look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to have a nice backdrop. I had parked outside of another wind farm at 3:00. And I wanted to have that.
How many, by average, windmills would you have in a wind farm for a hospital?
For the hospital where they're located in town, we're going to actually go with a solar project. So we're a little agnostic on the solution. As long as it's a renewable solution, we're either going to go solar, wind, or storage.
Okay.
We even have some other solutions, but our primary is either going to be wind or solar.
Okay, so let's just say it's a windmill solution, right? As opposed to solar powered. How much money would that be? Or let me rephrase that. How many windmills, just out of curiosity, from an aesthetic standpoint, and how close to the proximity to the space you have to be as well, too?
Yeah, and that's all goes into the permitting process. The college that we are building is going to be a $8 million construction. That's going to be probably $4 million in solar panels, $1 million in construction, and then there's going to be the ancillary fees, construction, permitting.
When would they recoup those funds? How long would it take to recoup those funds?
4 or 5 years for a tax equity investor. They'll get all their incentives back in year 5, but usually no longer than 6.
And they'll save between 10 and 20% per year on regular electrical costs, correct?
Correct. That's our goal.
Okay, got it.
The college and the college project that we got under contract right now, we're going to construction. They're actually going to pay a premium because their students are demanding renewable energy, so they wanted to pay. We gave them 10 different options for their project, and they actually picked the premium, which was they're choosing to pay a little bit more than what they're currently paying for electricity.
Got it. Okay, and then tell me about the maintenance fees on a project like that. If you go to a university or a hospital, what's the maintenance fees on or maybe make it comparable to all the renewable energy options that you have between the windmills and the solar panels and the like?
Right. Maintenance is part of the project that we capture as well. So there's 3 different revenue streams for a project. There's going to be the development capital, the development return, the 10x on that $50,000. Then there's going to be a maintenance contract that we have to service the project over the life of the project. And then also there's going to be some that will capture off the construction. So there's 3 areas of opportunity with the solar.
Gotcha. Wind. Now break down the difference and help me out understand the reasons for which you might use solar versus wind technology. Obviously, I'm sure you have to be in a windy environment for wind, but obviously you can't be in major urban settings with windmills, right? So at what point do you make certain decisions on that?
Yeah.
You're back.
Yep. Busy afternoon. My phone rings constantly, so I apologize for that.
That's okay.
All depends on the permitting in the area and where the opportunity is. A lot of solar for some of these smaller projects, and then wind. We're going to follow on. There's an $18 million wind project. We're going to follow on with the $8 million solar project. Mm-hmm. So it just takes longer to permit.
Are you doing mostly rural areas, or are you in urban areas as well?
My mentality since I started, as long as the check is good, so that narrow it down.
Where do you find the most demand?
Where there is conscientious acquirers, they know they don't have to switch to renewable. But then there's demand. I'm finding that the hospitals are liking this because the doctors are very aware about the aerosols that we're putting into the air and how many more asthmatics we have now today than we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And so doctors are very conscientious. So the doctors are asking for these projects. The colleges, the students are asking for them. So you have to find the consumer that's ready to make the transition. We can make the savings for whatever institution we're working on. That's not the problem. We just have to find the customer that wants to make the switch to renewables. So,
got it. Okay, so to find the territories in which you actually find yourself in. I mean, you looking at yourself more in the Midwest as opposed to national. How many areas can you service?
We primarily right now we're working Midwest. We've never said no. We've been to Puerto Rico, Argentina, Chile, Hawaii, Alaska, something in the Middle East, South Africa. So, that Midwest work ethic that we got, it's like wherever you want to go.
I got it. What are the sales of the company right now?
We're just hit $1 million already this year.
Okay. You project out what, 2 million, or is it a busier
$2 million for the year? Yeah. Fourth quarter is where the blitz always happens, because everyone's trying to get their tax projects done before they give it to Uncle Sam. So,
is that the gain, or is that the sales you've realized for the last 5 years? I mean, since 2000. When did you actually officially feel that you started this business? Is it 2002, or was it later?
There's been some pivots along the way. We had 2002 developing projects for different bunch of utilities, and then 2016 I had 600,000 in sales. 2017 1.7. Last year 1.2. We had a fire in the office, so we had a lot of recovery last year, and then this year we'll hit 2 million again. So
got it. So it's pretty stable at 2 million. So you off the 2 million, what have been the net revenues off the 2 million or 1.6? What have been the net revenues on average for the last 5 years?
Last year was a net loss. The year before, we took every single deductible we could because it was a great year. So we wrote off all of our vehicles and anything else that we had for 2017. And then
why was last year a loss, net loss?
Because of the fire.
And the fire, yeah. I'm sorry, tell me about the fire.
The fire wiped out the building, and we had a whole bunch of time recovering, getting back in. So
otherwise right. Okay. Yeah. So in 2017, did you realize a gain or net, or what we were net?
Yeah, we had a gain. It would have been $200,000 in profit in 2017.
So it sounds to me like you're aiming probably for getting 10% profit or net profit off of your sales, correct?
Correct.
What are you valuing your business at? What's the valuation, do you think, of the business?
When we started out the private placement offering, we were at $2 million valuation.
2 million valuation. So you were looking for what percent of the company?
We have $100,000 left available. We've brought in $400,000 so far. So
100,000 for
3%. No, 6%. Sorry, 6%. My apologies.
Are you giving a convertible note, or are you doing an equity deal? What are you looking for?
Equity.
Okay. And have you characterized the stock differently? And do you have preferred stock versus common?
Yes. We're actually membership shares.
Membership, so it's an LLC?
Yes, sir.
I got you. Okay. So you've already raised a significant portion of this. Now you're looking for less than $100,000, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And And then do you have value add type investors, or you just have people who are just regular investors into the deal? In other words,
value add. I love the networks that people have, and I got two insurance guys, and so they opened up their network to me, so I'm marketing to them. through their networks. Yeah, so I love value add.
Gotcha. Okay. And then do you have operating funds now to work before you collect your money, or you need that money immediately to continue the growth of the business? What's the use? That's our first
Yeah,
question. Second one is, what's the use of funds?
use of funds is to increase the number of cash registers. I always say call it a cash registers, but the 4 hospitals are all chomping at the bit to move forward, and that's what we're going to be investing those funds into those 4 hospitals that we got under LOI.
I understand. Okay.
And we are cash flowing.
So you've raised really good, 80 to 90% of what you're seeking right now. You're just looking to round out the last part, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay. What's your expansion goals?
The ending goal, Dad, and I kind of use my dad as the benchmark, just to and then try to double it.
Okay.
Dad had done $500 million in wind farms between 98 and 99. And so my goal is $1 billion in development opportunities. So.
And then tell me the market share that you have in this business right now. Tell me the scope of the competition.
As far as in Iowa, there's only one other guy that's doing the power purchase agreement model, and we're actually partnering with some other of the developers, so we'll finance their projects for them, and they'll build it. And so we're opening up other opportunities and creating more friends that way. So as far as Iowa, we only have one true other competitor, and that's in Dubuque. Great guy. I have a ton of respect for him. Then when we get into other states, Missouri, Kansas City, St. Louis, Minneapolis, but we have about a 5-hour buffer away from any other competitors.
So in the beginning of the call, you said you were in Minnesota, and I heard Iowa a couple times. You're in Iowa today, or you're from Minnesota, or
we
from
are
Iowa? I heard both in this call.
Yeah, I'm from Iowa.
But, okay, which city in Iowa?
Yeah, we're in Storm Lake, Iowa. We're about 6 hours due west of you.
Gotcha, because I went to the University of Iowa in Iowa City, so that's on the other side of the state. That's more on the eastern side.
Yeah.
So it's probably got about 6 or 7 hours. Are you near Hach?
No. Okoboji was closest to city.
Okoboji. Yeah, Okoboji.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Yep. That's great. Look, I'm interested in hearing more about it. I mean, I love renewable energy. I have a fair amount of knowledge in it. Certainly not an expert in it. I think what you're doing is terrific. I think the margins are interesting. I think that the biggest and last question I'd like to ask you is, do you see that the margins being able to change, from 10% somehow to a different, is there another economy as a scale to make that work better for you? Because 10% seems, those are restaurant type numbers, right? And net. So I'm just trying to see where that expense is going to.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's definitely a lot more room in there. We target a 35% margin. Is our target, and so that's our target. A lot of what we do is the maintenances. Maintenances have a lot more margin. Projects have a little less, but we capture a lot of bumps from the development fees of developing these projects.
So if you were to increase your margin, was there one thing you could point to that might be able to increase it, or is it basically this is the business and this is where it's at? I'm just trying to really find out. I really want to get my arms around and grasp that concept.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, increasing it is getting more of the maintenances. We added a number of maintenances guys earlier this year. And the reason why we're in Minnesota is we're doing work on these big turbines in the background. And we're able to capture better than 35% margin on a lot of the services that we're doing. So we try to not focus on commodity-based services. We want niche where the margin is a little bit better. There's fewer competitors. And that's what we want, is not have to compete for the bottom.
I got that. Who's the biggest company in your space right now in the United States? Who would you point to? And what type of revenues they do?
We're kind of a hybrid of some of the different people. Sunrun would have a little bit of what we're doing for the PPAs. But we don't have Sunrun in Iowa or Solar City.
Solar City is a publicly traded company, right?
Right. And Pattern Energy is really PEGI, PEGI. If you want to find a model where I bootleg their business model, I had a contract for them for Peggy for Pattern Energy Group to develop 3,500 megawatts of wind, and we really dug into that model. So Peggy's the best one if you want to find out the direction we're heading.
Gotcha. Well, you know what? I think you should come to Chicago, the windiest city in the world, I think. So, you know, you got to get these windmills out here somehow.
There's no twisting my arm to come to Chicago. I graduated from LaSalle, Peru, which is an hour west. Yep. So
that's great.
Put a hydro. Yeah,
terrific.
Dad built a 20 megawatt hydro project on the Illinois River. So
that's great. Well, I went to school at Iowa for a couple of years, and I was actually in Illinois for my last 2 years, and went to law school in Illinois too. So I've seen the windiest places. I actually often maintained, which is funny, because people call Chicago the Windy City. When I was in Iowa City, it actually was windier in Iowa City than it was in Chicago. And I determined the reason why is they have no buildings or anything to like block it. It's just pure plains of freezing winds come through. So you're in the right part of the country for this. I'm interested in learning further, right? Might be able to help out a little bit here, but I want to understand some more details. I think beyond this call, I think we get together and have a discussion. I know the administrators of the call would like that. But good job, great presentation. And look, you know, more importantly, you're doing something that's going to save the earth, and you're doing some great things out there for alternative energy, and it's working, right? I think you just want to look at scalability, and we just have to see if it's the right financial opportunity on our side.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going to connect on LinkedIn. I'm constantly sharing articles.
Good.
Growth of the market is huge.
Like to see it.
It's huge, yeah.
Well, I see the exit strategy potentially too. You know, you have 2 different companies that are out there right now in this space and with this technology, and they're publicly traded. So, you know, again, you want to be responsible while you go down that path. But nonetheless, I've done a lot of stuff that, and I've seen a lot of interesting companies along those. I've followed it because, you know, I have a workable knowledge in it, not an expert, right? But enough to have this conversation, which is good, and certainly have a desire to see renewable energy. So, why don't you have a great weekend? The administrators will forward you my email directly, okay? And we'll pick up the conversation from then. And until then, good seeing you, and we'll go from there, okay?
Great. Thank you.
Thanks. Great job. Take care.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.